Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today. Hope you're all doing absolutely excellent and had a wonderful weekend. Today, we're gathering to talk about ye old Xbox because, oh man, things are expensive nowadays. Not just for Xbox, but generally speaking, like mortgages are going up. I can speak to that one at least. Groceries are going up. Yeah, it's like an expensive time to just be alive and breathe in some air. And then video games, like our favorite pastime, is also going up tremendously. It's one thing to see price hikes in the middle of a generation. That's quite unprecedented, but given the kind of unprecedented economic state of the world, you kind of go, okay, sucks, but also at least I can point to something and say, aha, there's a reason that thing is happening. It's the same thing all these companies are saying. Xbox, Nintendo, PlayStation, all of them are throwing out there, hey, tough economic conditions right now. We're trying to navigate those. But when you jump your prices twice in a year, that's really tough. It says a lot about your brand. It says a lot about how you view your hardware, also how you view your customers, how big hardware plans are for the future of your company, what that means for next-gen hardware pricing, but also when you earlier this year doubled back on a pricing change, also citing economic conditions being that reasoning, it just looks a little backwards to me. I understand what's happening with the tariffs and the economic climate of the world. At the same time, I definitely look at some Xbox price jumps with an eyebrow raised because some of them, not all of them, are within their control. But as we'll break down in this video, Microsoft is still investing heavily. They have lots of money to spend because a lot of people said Microsoft's a multi-trillion-dollar company. Do they have to do this? The quick answer is they don't. They're just spending their money elsewhere, so they're trying to make up the difference literally everywhere else. And we'll explain what that is. But ladies and gentlemen, let's dive in. If you're new here and you're into what's going on with Xbox, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. So the heart of this announcement was right before this weekend. It was over on the Microsoft blog page where they posted that the US console pricing has changed. Beginning on October 3rd, we will update the recommended retailer pricing for Series S and Series X consoles in the United States due to changes in the macroeconomic environment. We understand that these changes are challenging and they were made with careful consideration. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play more games across any screen and providing value for Xbox players. Does that sound familiar to you? It should. It just happened a few months ago. So, to refresh your memory on where the prices jumped once earlier this year, which is pretty insane, let's go ahead and revise via this IGN article. The Series S jumped $80, the base one that you could buy at launch for $300, an $80 jump. The 1 terabyte Series S is now going for $430. The digital Series X jumped $100. The Series X that you could buy in 2020 jumped $100 to $600. And the 2 terabyte Series X jumped from $600 to a whopping $730. Meanwhile, controllers stayed within a reasonable range of like $10 to maybe $20. Nothing too crazy there, but the statement from Microsoft to IGN was, again, we understand that these changes are challenging and they were made with careful consideration given market conditions and the rising cost of development. Looking ahead, we continue to focus on offering more ways to play more games across any screen and ensuring value for Xbox players. Okay, so if you haven't seen it yet, time to rip off the Band-Aid. IGN has this handy chart here. These are the new prices. So price hike 2 from where we were already at. The Series S went from $380 to $400. The 1 terabyte Series S is now $450. The Series X digital version, $600. The Series X that you could buy at launch for $500 is now $650. And the 2 terabyte Xbox Series X is going for $800. So, yeah. I don't know who's buying an Xbox nowadays. I guess you have until October 3rd. My suggestion, even as someone who does appreciate Game Pass, hell no. Stay away from that, man. There's no way we should be paying this much, tariffs or not, for old hardware like that. I get and understand that some of this is out of our hands, collectively speaking. I get that. But here's the problem I start to have a bit, is Xbox's U-turns, citing the same exact reasoning. Remember, we've now caught 2 quotes here of economic conditions, right? Well, what happened when Xbox tried to charge $80 with that first price hike? Who led the charge but the Outer Worlds 2, as we've covered extensively here on the channel? And what did Xbox do after the backlash was pretty significant, but also, let's be real, I'm sure those pre-orders were not looking really nice. they U-turned. They brought the Outer Worlds 2 down to $70, which I kind of still stand in that camp of like, even that might be too much with Obsidian out there proudly championing. We make AA games. It's like, yeah, AA games are not $70. They're like $50 to $60. We've established that with a lot of releases this year. So when the price tag for the Outer Worlds 2 went down from $80 to $70, here is what an Xbox spokesperson had to say to IGN, quote, "We're focused on bringing players incredible worlds to explore, and we'll keep our fully priced holiday releases, including the Outer Worlds 2, at $69.99 in line with current market conditions." So on one hand, we're moving it up because of current market conditions, but then we're also moving things down because of current market conditions, you know, and I get the situations are different, but you see what I'm saying here? Because I think a lot of us recognize that tariffs are having those real world impacts and things are understandably going up, and that sucks big time. At the same time, I do think companies like Xbox showed their ass a bit, got a bit overzealous and went like, oh, there's a lot of confusion, the wool's over the eyes. We're going to use the chaos to kind of storm the gates. We're going to bring in these new price hikes, and people are going to be more accepting of them now because the economic conditions are in a state of confusion. Things aren't really stable. We're all kind of just waiting for the next price hike. So it was a good time for some companies to move in and use it to their advantage. And I do think while certain hardware jumps make sense, and I am understanding of them, I do think certain price jumps have been questionable, and that was one of them, given that Xbox has cited market conditions as reasons for going up and down with prices. And keep in mind, Microsoft is still investing heavily. They're spending a lot of money, as you'd expect a multi-trillion-dollar company to do so. I bring this up because a lot of people have said, well, how is Microsoft not just making up the difference here? Historically, that's what hardware has done, especially in the gaming space. They eat the cost and they make a lot of money on software. Well, that's because Microsoft as a whole has shifted entirely all of its investment into AI. Just a day before these price hikes, it was announced by Satya Nadella that Microsoft is building the most powerful, largest AI data center called Fairwater. This is located in Wisconsin. They define it as the largest and most sophisticated AI factory that they have built yet. More importantly, though, they say these AI data centers are significant capital projects representing tens of billions of dollars of investments and hundreds of thousands of cutting-edge AI chips, and will seamlessly connect with our global Microsoft cloud of over 400 data centers in 70 regions around the world. As we've seen, for example, with game development, with developers like Candy Crush, stories have come out that Microsoft is implementing a mandatory usage of AI in game development. This is an AI company, y'all. Like, that's where they're going now. A lot of people think software, and that is a big part of it, but they're transforming into like the AI bro company, or at least trying to be on the cutting edge of it all. So they're spending, and they could eat this cost, but in all that they're investing, by the way, in Xbox with the $70 billion almost that they spent on Activision Blizzard King, but also now they're moving to AI. Like, they're spending and they're in their where's my money at recoup phase. It's so funny to say recoup because we know they have the money, but this is what we expected with the tariffs. The prices will be pushed off to the consumers, and it's going to have a rattling effect on the games industry, not just now, but what I want to talk about is the future. But to just kind of bring things full circle here, and to be fair to the conversation, PlayStation did jump their prices in the middle of August. Everything from the PS5 to the PS5 Digital Edition to the PS5 Pro went up $50. And they said the same thing. Similar to many global businesses, we continue to navigate a challenging economic condition. Meanwhile, Nintendo jumped all Switch 1 related items. The Switch 1 went from $300 to $340. The Switch 2 went from $350 to $400. The Switch Lite went from $200 to $230. I do think Nintendo's strategy still remains strong, unlike Xbox's. Like, you could still use the Switch Lite as an entry-level Switch for a younger gamer or someone who's just kind of interested in a couple of games and get them into that Switch ecosystem for very cheap. What's happened to Xbox is they had a great launch strategy. Like, we have the expensive premium console that's going to run things the best it possibly can with your Series X. You want to pay for that with your disk drive? Perfect. But we also anticipate an all-digital environment, which they were correct about. Here's your Series S. It's got lower memory storage, lower specs, but it's cheaper to get into. It's your Game Pass machine, cycled downloads through this system, and you'll be fine for the whole generation. I think it was a great strategy. But now that Series S is $400, you can just add a couple, like $50 to $100 more if you include tax. Go get yourself a Switch 2. Or you could just look at, oh, I want the premium Series X experience. Oh, if I spend like over $100 more, I can get this PS5 Pro, like the strongest console on the market. Yeah, dude, easy. Xbox and their business strategy has unfortunately been destroyed because of these economic conditions. And now, I mean, you look at the declining sales of hardware and you see that they kind of just given up. And I don't blame them for it. Like, when every quarter for the last year and change, they have cited, yeah, the hardware's down, the hardware's down, the hardware's down. Every single time. Outside of, I think, holiday last year, Xbox hardware is always down in sales quarter over quarter. So I imagine, though I could be wrong, that Xbox is looking at that going, well, we can't take the loss on this anymore. We just have to make whatever money we can with what little Xbox hardware we do sell and gear up for the next generation. But the other part of it is that Xbox is still jumping prices in different areas. Like Game Pass, as great of a service as it is, did go up in value just in the middle of last year. Like, it went up from $17 to $20 for the ultimate tier. And that is within Xbox's control. This also did happen to occur when Xbox promised that prices wouldn't jump after the ABK acquisition. In fairness, subscription prices always jump. We anticipated this with Game Pass. But the reality is that there are things that are more within their control that are also jumping, which again goes back to how I say Xbox is in this money-making phase. And I don't view them as much as victims of the process as I do other companies across the globe, especially when you're owned by Microsoft and you have trillions of dollars. So that's a lot of what's happening currently. You could get an Xbox before October 3rd. Maybe Game Pass really does speak to you and it works for your situation. For me, I would just say, I mean, I've been very open about this, but like, yeah, I'm totally disenfranchised with Xbox at this point. You know, like, I feel like I've always been rational with them, but at this point, I'm just like, they're terrible. They're literally a shell of themselves in every single imaginable way. Whether it was in their control or not, they've made terrible decisions every step of this generation. And they could be setting up to make another. We have the Xbox ROG Ally due out just next month. And while price points have been leaking, we can tell Xbox is holding to the last possible minute to get this price down. The leak, according to my boy Destin, was that this would be $549 for the lower Xbox Ally SKU, and the Xbox Ally X would be $900. Again, for a niche device, I've already spoken about this a lot on Defining Duke. I'm good on this. I am not picking this up. If I get a review unit, sure, great, much appreciated. I don't mean to say that like with privilege, just like I know sometimes those offers come up. In that case, sure, I'd love to inform my audience. But if it's on me and my wallet, happily bowing out of that one. That's insane, especially for something that doesn't really boast and support the marketing message that Xbox has had about this is an Xbox when most of my library won't be played on this thing. And I could see Xbox jumping this price. I don't want to be totally doomer. Maybe they hold it. It's still kind of an outrageous price tag, and I'm sure this was with tariffs accounted for. But if things had to jump a second time, does that mean that's the case here for the Xbox ROG Ally? Because no doubt, eventually, I think, PlayStation and Switch will jump. But why do they wait months longer than Xbox? It's because for those companies, hardware is a huge part of their business strategy. They need you to buy the hardware because that's where you buy your third party. But also, that's where you buy those nice exclusives that Sony or Nintendo collects 100% on. And so now, looking ahead for next generation consoles, easily $1,000. Easily more than $1,000. I just can't see a world where it's not. And that lack of financial accessibility, especially on the console front, is going to be pretty damning for a lot of things. It's not just about, oh, I can't get in and buy the shiny new toy. But think about this generation, right? COVID slowed down this gaming generation tremendously because of development environments, development costs going up, the COVID bubble popping, all that stuff, right? So we saw a very slow transition this generation from Xbox One and PS4 games to Xbox Series X and PS5 games. It took us a while to get to that point of finally doing exclusive SKUs for these next generation systems. And it's funny because when we finally started to see them in like late 2022, early 2023, it was with games like Gotham Knights where we're like, oh, 30 frames, wonderful. So it really got us very bitter quickly. And so looking at that, I imagine the next generation will have a lower adoption rate, a slower adoption rate, no doubt about it. I think people will eventually buy it because like new hardware is fun, games are fun, it's a great pastime, a great luxury hobby. Like it makes sense the money will eventually go there, but I think it'll go there much slower And because that'll happen, because the prices will be way higher, even if you're prepared for it, even if you have a good job, it's like, dude, over $1,000. You got to think about that a lot more than like the start of this generation was 500, which we all also had to think about. But if that adoption rate is slower, then that also means that the adoption rate on the developer end and trying to get us out of the space of looking at the Series X, the PS5 and saying, can we fit this vision for this next generation game on these systems as well? You're going to get a lot of games that feel like this generation, right? Where it was like, we're just like a half step maybe away from where we were before. Did I really need to spend 500 on this? So I think if this generation was like a 3-year jump, unless things just rebound tremendously and we're all like recouping quickly, things go down in price, which like, why would these companies ever drop their prices if they're setting standards? Like, again, I do think some companies are taking advantage of the confusion. I don't know if Xbox is fitting that definition 24/7, but I do think there are just companies around the world that are taking advantage of the chaos and being like, okay, jump this up. Like, let's make a little more money on this. And so I know it's just anecdotal, but like we've seen numbers go up on Retro Rebound. We've seen a lot more engagement of people really looking at their backlogs with more fondness and doing a lot less purchasing, and also supporting indies where you can buy new games, but for much cheaper. That's the market we're heading into. And that's bad news for companies like Xbox. It's good news for independents or smaller developers, no doubt, because they'll be the ones who thrive during all of this and survive during all of this as well. But will independents also be pushing the technical boundaries of your big new $1,000 plus system? That's also hard to imagine. So we're in for what will be, I think, a difficult stretch if things don't rebound tremendously soon, which I don't anticipate them doing so. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, those are my thoughts on the newest price jumps from Xbox and kind of just talking about the industry at large. I expect more from the other members of the big three, but it's a shame that it's just become so inaccessible to engage in this hobby because it's so special, but a lot of people are jaded over it. And you can feel that leaking into the conversation. It's just a real shame because I know some of it's out of our control, but I do still think companies have some sort of decision making in all of this, and we can see what they prioritize at the end of the day. So vote with your wallet is the final message of this video. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you take excellent care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.